I'm thrilled to take you to Australia for a conversation with Rum Charles. He is an author. He's written these fabulous children's books that I think he's going to write more and more and more. And I hope you just absorb these books. He is in Melbourne, Australia, right by Elwood Bay, or as he likes to call it, the beach. So we're kindred spirits in that way. As you all know, I talk about that often. And he's got these books that so many of them focus in this one series on sharks, which everybody knows I'm fanatical about sharks and protecting sharks. So this is brilliant to have him on. The book we're going to talk about, Dad, There's a Hammerhead in the Shed. Is that just a great title? Rum, thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure, Kate.
Let's talk about how you, first of all, came up with this theme and this really series of books.
Well, the theme came from my original children's book, which is called The Sea Glass Witch. So I was walking along the beach one day, and I had a girlfriend, and she was forever picking up sea glass. She'd always be stopping and picking up sea glass. And one day she stopped in front of me. I bumped into her, and I said to her, "You're like the sea glass witch, you are." And as the words came out of my mouth, I thought to myself, that's a really great title for a book. So the first children's book that I wrote a business book back in 2009, but the first children's book I wrote was 2020, and it was The Sea Glass Witch, and it was based on the fact that I had a girlfriend who was ever picking up sea glass. I did send her a copy of the book. She was most impressed. So that's how the first book came along. And in The Sea Glass Witch, I don't know if you know or your listeners know an Australian author. He's very famous. His name is Graham Bass. Do you know Graham Bass?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, he's a great author, and he's well known around the world for drawing Easter eggs of animals in his books. Like, you can look at a page of his book and you won't see that there are hundreds of animals in the pages until you look carefully. So, I try to include a bit of an homage to Graham Bass by putting some secret characters into The Sea Glass Witch. And I put in some secret sharks. And there were 3 sharks. There's the Pyjamas shark, there's the Hammerhead shark, and there's a lemon shark. So the first in the series of books that I've written about sharks are taken from The Sea Glass Witch, which is the reason that you have Dad, There's a Hammerhead in the Shed. I mean, that's a great title, if you ask me. And then there's The Shark Who Needed My Pyjamas, which is based on the Pajama Shark. And then a book that's just come out, actually, and is available on Amazon, is Dad, Our Lemons Bitey, and that's about lemon sharks. There's another couple of books that are coming as well, which is The Unexpected Nurse, which is about a nurse shark. And then there's also a nervous shark. So Vanessa gets to hang out and play with a nervous shark as well. So there are 5 books in this set, in this series, about sharks.
And, you know, it's interesting. There is a fascination, I think, that lots of us have with sharks. What do you chalk that up to?
I think that sharks are one of those mythical creatures where we like to be slightly scared and in awe of animals at the same time. So I think that sharks really got a bad rap in my view, but also were brought to international attention in the 70s with the movie Jaws. So, I mean, if you go dum 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 dum, everybody knows and sees a shark and feels a shark in their bones. So I really feel that human beings have a love-hate relationship with sharks. But I think we need to respect them more. We need to love them more. We need to nurture them more, and we need to stop killing them. So a big part of my books is to introduce people to sharks as friendly creatures who live in this little girl's imagination and in her house as well.
Yeah. So in the book, Dad, There's a Hammerhead in the Shed. Tell us about the storyline there.
Well, the storyline for Dad, There's a Hammerhead in the Shed is based on when my daughter Vanessa was very little. She would always have imaginary friends. Okay, I'd walk into a room and she'd be talking to someone. I'd sit down and she'd say, "You just squashed my friend," or she'd be asking me to play these various games or do different things. I spent a lot of time on the phone to Barbara Millicent Roberts, also known as Barbie. So I'd be making phone calls to Barbie, and we're arranging tea parties, and go to my fellow Australian, Margot Robbie, who gets to play Barbie. So with this particular book, what happens is that Vanessa goes into her dad's shed, and behind the door is a hammerhead shark. Now, in all the shark books, you never see the father. You hear his voice, but you never see him, because as we all know as adults, the minute an adult goes into a room where an imaginary friend is, the imaginary friend disappears. So the dad's in the house. In this case, he's doing the family laundry. Okay, so he's doing the laundry, and Vanessa shouts from the shed. She goes, "Dad, there's a hammerhead in the shed." And he goes, "Of course, that's where they live." But he's thinking about a hammer and a hammerhead from one of his tools, and she's seeing a hammerhead shark. So the hammerhead shark's in the shed because he's trying to get a nail out of his nose. And Vanessa calls back to her dad and says, "Dad, how'd you get a nail out?" And he says, "You could try a claw." And the hammerhead says to Vanessa, "Well, I've tried that, but lobster didn't like it because of the claw on the lobster." Dad says you can use a spanner, and she tries a spanner crab. I don't know if you have those in America, but in Australia, we have wonderful spanner crabs, great eating as well. And so, so she uses a spanner crab. And then he says, "Have you used the other end of the shark? Have you used the other end of?" And really, really, truly, Dad, And so she tries to use the tail. And obviously that doesn't work. And so eventually she finds a little hammer on the side of the bench, and she manages to use the claw end of the hammer to get the nail out. And so her and the hammerhead are very, very pleased that she's helped him to feel better. So in part, the book's about not being scared of things that are different to you. So she's not scared of the hammerhead. It's about helping the hammerhead. And the book has been reviewed by the US Review of Books, and there's a beautiful quote which I'll give you actually from the book. It says, "This book is unique because the message about the power of perseverance, her perseverance echoes in a single line that embodies the book's entire theme. Let me try one more time." And that's the truth. So about Dad, there's a hammerhead in the shed. It's about Vanessa's resilience. It's about her willingness to try, her willingness to help, and her own imagination. So it's got a lot of imagination, but it's funny. The book's funny. So there's lots of laughs, not just for the child, but for the adult as well. I believe that if a book is to become a family favorite, the adult who's reading it is going to love it as much as the child.
Yeah. How fun was it for you to write these books? Because you have such a great imagination and you nailed it. I mean, obviously, when you say that it's funny, there's a lesson, all of that. Was it fun to do this?
Oh, look, yes, it was a lot of fun. Without a doubt, writing these books is fun. I'm not done. I've done 5, but there's a whole different set coming up called the wobbegongs. There's a subset of sharks called wobbegongs. Say the word wobbegongs, Kate.
Wobbegoals.
No, wobbegong.
Wobbegong.
Yeah. Now, you see, you can't say wobbegong without laughing.
Yeah, wobbegong.
Out there, yeah, if you're in Radio Land and you're listening right now, say wobbegong to a child and watch them laugh. So there's a whole set of books coming up called We Are the Wobbegongs and We're Coming to Town. So look, it's a lot of fun reading and writing these books. I look through and I see different shark names and I think, well, that's funny. Wobbegong's a funny word. A nurse shark is funny. So when the nurse shark comes, because Vanessa's not well, one of the things we do there is that she uses coral, and she puts coral in Vanessa's mouth like a thermometer, because we all know with coral bleaching and global warming, when the coral goes white, it means that it's hotter. So therefore, there's a funny joke about the coral going white, which means that she's a little unwell. And she uses a sea sponge on her head to keep her cool, and then she uses kelp bandages. And I hope, as I'm explaining it, your listeners can see in their mind's eye how funny that is, where you've got a little girl wrapped up in with a sponge on her head and kelp around her, and they're testing her reflexes with a little hammerhead shark. So these books are endlessly entertaining for me to write, and I hope endlessly entertaining for you and the children to read.
Yeah, and you said it, you talk about the power of perseverance overall, and you're explaining this quite well, that what do you really hope the takeaway is in the relationship with the books and the child, and really adults too as well?
Well, there's a few relationships, and there's a few things that I would like the adults and the children to take away. One of them is that Vanessa lives with her dad, so it's men can be primary caregivers. Dads can be as much fun and as useful and as good parents as mums. So I really want to give up, to say that dads are really important in young people's lives as well as mothers. That's really important. These books are about, yes, they're about sharks. Yes, they're about parenting, but it's also creating an intergenerational connection between grandparents, parents, and children. That's the particular message I'd like people to take away from my books.
Yeah, perfect place to end this. You can get all of these books, as Rum mentioned, on Amazon. Rum Charles, keep doing what you're doing, and thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you, and I hope to speak to you again soon. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you to all your listeners.
Visit www.greatwritersmedia.com. Email us at info@greatwritersmedia.com. Call us at 877-600-5469. Subscribe now.